How did 4 men vanish in the Nevada desert without a trace? And why did a phone call return with the voice of one of them 12 years after they disappeared? This case remained open for years, leaving investigators confused and even the most experienced authorities without answers. 4 men disappeared under mysterious circumstances, with no clear evidence to explain what happened. There was no crime, no signs of struggle, just a complete disappearance that left behind nothing but questions. What makes this case even more disturbing is what happened years later, turning it into something far more complex and terrifying. In this story, we'll break down everything that happened and try to understand the truth. So make sure you watch until the end. In the summer of 1981, 4 men vanished in the Nevada desert without a trace. There was no crime, no accident, not even a single clue to explain what happened. They simply disappeared. They were 4 friends. Daniel Cruz, 38, a father of 2, and an expert in desert expeditions. Michael Harris, 34, a mechanic struggling financially. Ethan Lewis, 29, a quiet man who loved exploration. Robert Kane, 41, a former soldier, and the only one who felt that something wasn't right. That night, everything seemed normal. They sat around their truck, talking, laughing, until the darkness grew heavier. At exactly 9:20 p.m., Daniel picked up the radio and said, "We're not alone out here." His voice was low, tense. There are lights moving on the horizon. He paused for a few seconds, then added, "They're getting closer." Suddenly, the signal cut, heavy static, then a faint scream, unclear, and then silence. In that moment, no one knew what had happened. But the next morning, everything changed. When they didn't return, a search team was sent out. The first rescue vehicle arrived, then another. Soon, helicopters were scanning the desert from above. Hours later, they found the truck. The doors were open. The engine was still warm. The keys were still in place. Everything seemed normal, except for one thing. There was no one there. The search expanded. Helicopters covered the entire area. Ground teams spread across the desert. Then, they found footprints, 4 trails, leading away from the truck. Investigators followed them, step by step. Then, they stopped. Suddenly, no return tracks, no signs of struggle, no evidence. As if they had vanished at the exact same moment. Just 1 week later, the case escalated. Special forces were called in. Then, the FBI got involved. A full investigation began. The area was sealed. Everyone connected to the 4 men was questioned. Everything was analyzed. The vehicle, the ground, even the air in the area. But nothing was found. Some investigators said, "This is not a normal disappearance." But officially, the case was classified as unexplained disappearance. As time passed, the families began to break. Daniel's wife stopped sleeping. She kept the lights on all night, waiting for him to return. His children grew up without ever knowing what happened to their father. Michael's mother refused to leave the house. She would say, "He will come back. I know it." But Robert, his story was different. Before the trip, he told his mother, "If anything happens to me, don't trust everything they tell you." Words no one understood at the time. Years passed. 1982. 1983. 1985. The case began to fade, but for the families, it never ended. Then, in 1993, 12 years later, something unexpected happened. Robert's mother received a phone call. No number, no sound at first. Then, hello. It was his voice. Her son's voice. The call ended. Then it came again and again. Same voice, same word. Hello. The police were informed. The case was reopened. This time, it was more serious. For 4 full months, every call was recorded. Attempts were made to trace the source, but nothing. Until one investigator said, "We need to go back to where it all started." The team returned to the desert. Same location, no cameras, only small audio recording devices. But everything started to fail. Devices stopped working, shut down, broke. Every single time, the same thing. At night, exactly at 9 p.m. All lights went out, no explanation. Then, one night, they heard it. Hello, but this time, it wasn't from a phone. It was coming from the desert, from the darkness. The next day, the investigation was closed. Official report, unexplained phenomena. But one investigator wrote, "They weren't just missing. It feels like they were somewhere else." And since that day, nothing was ever heard again. But the real question is, what do you think? Back then, there were no cameras, no advanced technology, so how did they disappear? And how did the voice return after 12 years? Was it coincidence? Or something we still don't understand? Write your theory in the comments. From now on, we'll be bringing you new mysteries and untold secrets every Sunday. To be the first to witness the truth, subscribe now and hit the bell icon. Join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. EST for a new story from the depths of reality. See you next Sunday. Peace.